But it's time for Up Close with Gary Miller and Mark McGwire.
Mark McGwire is set.
They're going to try and come in. This is where many people make mistakes.
Swing! And it's get up, baby! Get up, get up, get up! Home run! He's done it again! 70 home runs! Take a ride on that for history. How can you end a season better than Big Mac has just done? Woo-wee! Unbelievable.
From the ESPN studios in Los Angeles, here's Gary Miller.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for watching Up Close. We're honored to be joined today by Mark McGwire, a guy who, well, we've seen a lot of you lately, Mark, but after the season ended, you know, we had the home run call. We ran out of ways to describe what happened last year, but after that, the season ended, you kind of disappeared until this recent media blitz. Where'd you go? Where you been?
I've been around. You guys just couldn't find me for the first time in your life. So.
You like that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Well, I actually, after what I went through last year, you know, I needed to get away. I mean, come on. I mean, I think I was probably the only athlete ever in the history of any sport to ever be singled out for 2 straight months and to be looked at by the nation, by the world. And it was fun to be looked that way, but I needed a break.
You know, you mentioned the world. You went to Australia, right, and to Mexico a couple of times.
Right.
What's the reaction to you there? I imagine even there it's tough to be anonymous.
Australia, it was okay. I mean, a few Australians recognized me, but I ran into a lot of American tour groups that didn't help out. Mexico, you know, a lot of Americans go down to Mexico, and even some of the Mexicans down there recognized me, but they were very cordial, and a lot of, you know, that's where I got a lot of great stories. I mean, I had a lot of people throughout the nation came up with some great stories along when I was out of the country.
Well, share a couple with us. The ones that most stick with you, especially from your vacation time.
I think it's all the same. It's, you know, the fathers coming up and saying thank you for bringing baseball back, or having a piece to bring baseball back, or allowing me to bring my child and family to a baseball game again. It's great to go to the ballpark and be excited to see teams play and players play. You know, the most asked questions last year was, did he hit one? Yeah. And, you know, that was sort of tough to take as far as I was concerned, because this is a team sport, and to sit back and listen, people were singling me out by saying, it wasn't like they were saying, did the Cardinals win, which it should be. It was like, did McGwire hit one today? And that was sort of tough, but I understood it.
Can you begin to imagine how many kids' walls, wallets, doctors' offices, etc., there's pictures of people with your arm around them all around the world now?
Yeah. Yeah, and they're probably telling all their friends, they're personal friends of mine, too.
Now, I know in the past you haven't been that concerned with holding on to things. Your 87 Rookie of the Year award, right from your debut in the big leagues, you put in storage somewhere.
Right.
You didn't. Right. You gave away some of your Silver Slugger awards and things like that. Well, what about from this season did you keep and it means the most to you?
Well, the one thing that I kept this year was the Commissioner's Award that Bud Selig gave me the night of '62, and I got it at the end of the year where they finally engraved the number 70 on it. But everything else I gave away, from my shoes, my socks, batting gloves, my shirts, my jerseys, my bats, balls. You know, I thought it was more important for my teammates, my friends, my family to have that stuff rather than me. So it meant a lot to me that they have it in their house, and you know, I don't need to see that stuff. I mean, I was honored enough to do what I did, and for them to have that and cherish it, it means a lot to me.
You know, a lot of the people, it helps that you play in St. Louis, which is about as Midwestern down home as you can get. But
you can't
I think the country was astonished at the people who gave the balls back.
Right.
These balls that were worth what turned out to be millions of dollars.
Yeah, well, it got ridiculous. I mean, I got upset, you know, and then you have the IRS coming in and saying, we're going to tax the ball. I mean, when did everybody get a ball being taxed? You know, it just, I mean, it got out of hand. And I do have to thank, you know, a lot of the people that gave the balls back. And, you know, there's only one place and one place only where these balls belong, you know, is in the Hall of Fame. And, you know, the one that means a lot is 62 is sitting there for everybody in the world to go and see.
Can you begrudge somebody, though, that could really, you know, that one of the kids, ball 68, the ball that's kind of lost in the shuffle, a guy is able to pay for vet school, you know, by being able to auction that ball off?
Well, you know, they can do whatever they want. And I've said since day one, if there's ever going to be one dime exchanged in any of these balls, I don't want any part of it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to see it. And a lot of people ask me about this 70 ball, what I thought about it, and I said it's in the wrong hands. It should be in the Hall of Fame, where the history of the game is meant to be displayed for everybody in the world to come and see. And it should, I mean, that's as far as it goes, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't care to ever see it or ever touch it.
Now, you know, as soon as this season starts, you've said you're not going to talk about 70 anymore, which good luck with that. But we're going to start right over from the very beginning. How much would you love to get your first at-bat or first game or first series to at least get that first home run out of the way?
Oh, it's great. Anytime you get the first thing out of the way. But, you know, it takes two to tango. It takes a pitcher on the mound that I know every time I get up there, I see the best of the best. And, you know, this game is not easy. And if it was, a lot of people would be doing what I'm doing. And it's just not happening. So, you know, whenever it happens, it happens. That's why we play 162.
How's it going to be this year? You know, your own manager has said, I think he can hit 75.
Oh, piece of cake.
Okay, then why even play the season?
Right. Yeah, 75, next year 80, 90, what the heck, right?
How different is it going to be, though, to pursue yourself?
You know what? I made a vow to myself. I just want to have a really nice year. You know, just a nice winning year to, you know, do what I can do between, you know, I think I've set my precedents to hit 50 home runs, hit 50 or plus or more or whatever, hit close to 300, drive in well over 100. And if I do that, I think I'm putting my piece of the pie in for the Cardinals to have a good chance of winning the Central.
Well, you know, it's impossible for you to do that anymore because each year you become the only guy to hit 50 home runs in so many consecutive seasons. When you hit your 43rd this year, you'll join the 500 club.
Right.
What's that going to mean to you?
Well, what I've gone through in my career, it means a lot to me. It's just, I mean, shoot, when I went to college, I was a pitcher. Who'd ever think that I'd be sitting here talking to you about reaching 500? You know, it's just, I've surpassed anything I've ever expected myself as far as a baseball player. I'm really happy with the way things have gone. I've been through tons of adversity through my life. Nothing's ever been easy, and I'm standing here before you to talk to you that things happen for a reason, and you can climb those walls and bust through those walls to get where you want to get, and I've done it.
How much of this, you know, I've heard you speak a lot about being touched by God and how he had some hand in this and that you were chosen, and when did you come to realize that you had some responsibility here, that you were the chosen guy to break these records?
Well, I think it's common sense. Everybody's put on this earth for a reason, and you just have to find out what the reason is. A lot of people walk in this life ho-humming it, and you know, poor me, poor you, and it's not right. Instead of trying to accomplish something that the good Lord upstairs gave you the power to do. And you know, the adversity I went through in my career, I mean, I literally wanted to walk away from this game. I wanted to put my head in the dirt and never be heard from again. But because of friends and family talked me into staying in this game, and now thinking back, you know, there was a reason. There was some kind of sign right there telling me that man upstairs is telling me to slow down and change my life around, which I did. And I think the reason why what happened earlier in my career last year was the reason for it.
Now, to pretty much put the seal on that, you got to meet the earthly man himself, the Pope.
Yeah,
that was one of your big off-season surface things. Now, the thing I love about this is you said you heard that he was a pretty good joke teller. Right. It would have been fun to hang with him.
Yeah, why not?
Hang with the Pope. You're going to hang. What are you going to do? Hang with the Pope?
Hey, he's a human being just like anybody else, right? I mean, I'd like to hang out with a lot of people. I mean, but I have to thank the St. Louis Archdiocese for setting this up. It was an outstanding situation. I really wish I got to spend more time with him and tell jokes and have some food with him. But you know, he's probably the busiest man in the world today. And to spend 15 seconds with him, shake his hand, kiss his ring, it meant a lot to me.
Okay, and his picture's in your locker now, right? The two of you together?
Yeah, I mean, that's common sense, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
He's looking over me.
Tough to have a bad day with that hanging in your locker behind you. Well, coming from Mark McGwire saying he's probably the busiest man in the world, that's a pretty good endorsement. We got much more to cover with Mark McGwire, but we got to take a break here. We'll come back with Big Mac himself after this. Big Mac's gotten us in the mood, so we're going to go join him in Florida. All next week, we'll come to you from Orlando at Disney's Wide World of Sports Complex. Scheduled guests include the Alomars, Bobby Cox, and George Brett. When we return with Mark McGwire, we'll talk with him about his skills as an actor, being on the Letterman Show, and we'll also discuss his critics.
Got big arms. He looks awfully strong. 2-2 pitch. Strike three call has walked out the outside corner. Better learn to foul that off or hit it, kid, or you'll be back in Tacoma.
We're back with Mark McGwire, and I guess that wasn't I thought it was your first at bat against Walt Terrell, but it was your second series as a major leaguer.
Yeah.
Can you think back? Well,
yeah,
two bats later, you get your first home run.
Yeah, first home run, probably the same pitch that he said, you better learn how to swing at that, son. You'll be back in Tacoma. And I hit it 441.
Did you used to be very sensitive to what people said and wrote about you? I know at USC...
I think everybody is, yeah.
When you first went to USC, some guy had written an article about you just coming out of high school. It was very damaging, and you put it up on your wall.
Yeah. It wasn't that. It was... God, well, I don't even know if it was out of high school. I think it was like my first or second year in college, and he just critiqued me and put me down a lot. So I put it above my wall, and above my bed on my wall. And before every night I went to bed, I read it, and I said, well, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. So, I've had a lot of people say that I couldn't do what I'm doing right now. I mean, when I signed in '84, I remember a coach in the Oakland organization looked at me straight in the eye and said, "Son, you're not going to be able to hit in the big leagues with a swing like that." And I looked him right back in the eye and said, "How do you know? I've never been there." And which I hadn't. So, it's just that's where I'm a firm believer. You're given a certain gift, and you work with it. And I've had a lot of hitting coaches through my career. And it's not that you pick everything they say. You just pick a few things that they say. Sometimes you don't mesh with a hitting coach. There's nothing wrong with that. So I picked up a few things that I've used since my first hitting coach and Bob Watson. I still use them today. So
within 3 at-bats against Walt Terrell, who lasted a long time in the major leagues, you figured him out. You knew what he was going to throw. How about the big, tall right-hander that you faced in Manhattan in the offseason from Indiana? What'd you think of David Letterman's stuff? David
Letterman, that's it, yeah. Well, I tell you what, he was nasty. He was nasty because he couldn't find the plate. He says, we're going to go outside on the street and I'm going to throw you some BP. I said, okay, great, let's go. So we go outside and it's dark and they had one spotlight sitting there shining on home plate, this makeshift home plate. So he starts throwing these balls. I couldn't see the ball. And then, he threw like 5 of them and he wasn't even close, and he threw another one. I swung and missed just a swing. And finally, I think after the 10th one, I finally hit one, so that was it. They said, cut, that's good enough.
There. Well, so there was some TV editing there, because they only showed 3 of them.
That's why they tape over there.
But you parked that one. It was like over 400 feet.
Yeah, it was fun. That was my first thing I ever did. It was, I think I was nervous, and more nervous than I've ever been in my whole life, being on the David Letterman show. But he was great, and I loved talking to him.
You said you were nervous, which I assumed you probably would be, because did you feel like the pressure to be funny?
No, it's just you're just out of your element, and it's not a thing that I normally do. I don't do a lot of talk shows like that, and it's like you think entertainers, actors and actresses, that's their cup of tea. They do. This is what we do. We talk to guys like you talking about sports, and I was nervous, but he made me feel very, very comfortable, and I had a great time.
Were you afraid he was going to give you a hard time or embarrass you somehow?
He was great. I'm definitely going to go back on there. So if Dave, you're listening, I'd love to come back.
Well, okay, only if he comes on our show. Okay. Now, but you are an entertainer now. Walt Jocketty, your general manager, said he might be the next John Wayne based on your performance in Mad About You.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yes.
I loved it. It was great. I was nervous going in there too, but not as nervous as David Letterman. It's just it was a 3-day event, and Tuesday went in there and met them all, Helen, Paul, and all the cast, and went over the script and read it, went over the scenes, and I'm driving home thinking, they gave me a lot of lines. I thought it was just going to be a little short cameo, and I was like nervous. I go, how am I going to remember this? And I've always been good about remembering things, and it came back on Thursday, went over things again. They added the credit scene where I got to sit at the table with Helen in the robes and got to kiss her, which was very nice.
Yeah.
And, it was, and then Friday we went over it again before we filmed, and it was great. Had a wonderful time.
In Southern California, where you grew up, it's hard not to have some involvement to the movie industry. Was that ever a dream of yours as a kid to be an actor?
No, it wasn't. And I've always enjoyed it, but I just, there's just, you think there's a lot of people trying to be a baseball player, there's millions and millions more trying to be actors, and it's a tough gig to get into, and, timing's got to be right there, right, whatever it may be, and I like what I'm doing right now.
How about going to a lot of things happened to you that never would have happened to you before you got to this record that no one's ever been able to touch. You invited to the movie premiere for Thin Red Line and Patch Adams. John Glenn calls you in the clubhouse. Bruce Springsteen shows up. I mean, are these once-in-a-lifetime events, or has anything blossomed out of this into a true friendship with some of these people? Right
now it's once in a lifetime, but I hope, God, if they're all watching this, I'd love to stay in touch with these guys. I mean, it was outstanding. The premieres was just, what can you say, the chance of going to meet the actors and actresses doing these great movies. I've always been a fan of Robin Williams and got to go see the Patch Adams and got to meet him and hang out with him and Billy Crystal. Thin Red Line, which is, up for an Academy Award, it's just, I think it's fantastic movie. And the funny thing is, they were editing the movie that night of '62, and they stopped editing every time I went up to the plate. So it was really neat to hear the stories when I was at the party afterwards.
So you had to be kind of amazed that they were that interested in baseball.
I was. I didn't even think they knew what the baseball was, because they were over in Australia filming this film for a long time.
Any hoaxes? Any funny hoaxes of people trying to call you and it turned out to be a hoax?
No, but there's a lot of people out there that are probably calling other people saying they're me.
That's true. Well, we are glad to have the one and only, the real thing, the original Mark McGwire on our show. We're going to talk about the Cardinals of 1999 before we go. We've got to take this break first with Big Mac, up close, on his way to 500 this year and more when we return. If you missed any part of the show or just want to see it again, we've got a special re-airing of the Mark McGwire Show at 12:30 a.m. Eastern. That's 9:30 on the West Coast on ESPN2. So catch it tonight for a second time. Wednesday, back on ESPN, 6 Eastern time, we go up close with the new Lakers coach, Kurt Rambis. We'll talk about his new assignment, his former boss, Del Harris, and coaching Dennis Rodman. When we come back, the new look cards for 99. Will Mark McGwire ever get back to a World Series?
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, a part of the Go Network. Go.com.
Welcome back to Up Close, our closing minutes with Mark McGwire. And Mark, great to have gotten you, and then you break the record in St. Louis, but all the pitchers that they went after, they haven't seemed to be able to get Kevin Brown, Randy Johnson. Matt Morris right now is the ace of the staff. Right. What can you realistically expect in terms of the standings this year in the Central race?
I tell you what, I'll put our staff up against any staff right now. It's just, we might not have the so-called number one workhorse, but our starting pitchers are very capable of getting in the 6th and 7th inning. And I hope they don't put a label on any of our pitchers and say that they're number one, because, if they work as a group, they'll be much better. Our bullpen's outstanding. We actually have 3 stoppers right now: Radinsky, Patalico, and Acevedo. And the setup men and the middle relief are just fantastic. So we're in a lot better position than we were in last year.
How happy were you that Clemens didn't go to the Astros?
For a guy that hits like 0-30 against them, yeah, I'm pretty happy. You know, what can you say? He's like wine, got better with age. I mean, ever since he started throwing that split finger, and you know, he still throws 95 and above, and he's very intimidating, very aggressive. Geez, what a steal the Yankees got. So George did it again.
You couldn't ask for anything more, but you were in the World Series 3 of your first 4 years, yet you got one ring.
Right.
Any fear that your career is going to end without another even chance of the World Series?
That's something that I always shoot for. I mean, every athlete, we play this game to win and to get on that podium, to hold that World Series trophy up there. You know, we have a nice team here. We filled in the spots that we lost a few players this year with some very capable players to fill in. You know, it's just going to be one of those things. We just have to blend in. Everybody just do their part. I'm a big believer in that. We can't rely on just one person. I think, or two people. A team comes together if everybody does their thing, prepare every day to take care of themselves and to throw it out there for 9 innings as hard as you can. And you look at the New York Yankees, the way they went about their business last year. There wasn't an MVP on that team, but everybody had great years. And there wasn't really one guy that you can point out that did better than the other guy. And that's what a winning team's all about, and hopefully we can follow suit.
Mark, we've got about 30 seconds left. There's about 30 more questions I'd like to ask you, but let's
just go over. Come on.
Earlier you said 50 home runs would be nice, run 100 RBIs. Would it be worth it to go through this all over again like you did last year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say this won't happen again. I mean, it's just anything's possible after what I went through last year. And, you know, I think myself and Sammy, the only people in the world that knows what it's like to go through the scrutiny we did as far as media. That's probably the toughest thing. But we went through it. We handled it. And I'm not going to say it never can happen again. It's going to be tough to do, to break 70. Because I know what the pressure is to get to 60, 61, 62. Now try going 10 more.
Yeah.
That's 10 long homers right there. So, but anything's possible.
Well, we look forward to watching you. It's been our pleasure to have Mark McGwire share what it's been like to go for that all-time record. It's always good to have Big Mac on up close.
Thank you, Gary.
We thank you for watching our show. I'm Gary Miller in Los